These are the DropLabs EP1s, which are haptic shoes designed for listening to music and gaming. DropLabs was kind enough to send me a pair of these to check out, so today I'm going to go over what they do, what I like about them, and what are some things that they could improve on. The EP1s basically act as two subwoofers strapped to your feet. You pair them with your favorite headphones and they add an insane amount of bass and feedback to your listening experience. Which sounds kind of weird, because it is, but it feels a lot more like having like a large sub on the floor of your room rattling the floor, or being at a live concert and feeling the bass through the floor, I guess. Using the phone app is pretty simple. You just pair the shoes to your phone and then you pair your headphones to the shoes. That way the audio is routed through the shoes first so that they can properly sync the latency, and then they also have separate haptic control from the headphone volume. The app has several different presets for how the shoes feel depending if you want more high-end or low-end of the bass spectrum. It's kind of hard to show what the shoes feel like because it's not something that, I guess I kind of can capture it on video. Here's what they look like on the highest setting with a bass boosted YouTube video. You can see that they really do have a decent amount of power. Obviously, you won't be running them at this high of a setting. Now, the shoes themselves are decently comfortable. I pretty much only wear running shoes, so I'm used to having all mesh sides and not a whole lot of support. What I'm not used to is the fact that these have an extra inch on the sole because of all the electronics that the bottom of the shoe houses. Which I'm not complaining about because it adds another inch to my height, but since your foot is so much higher up, if it slides off due to a misstep, your ankles are definitely more at risk. They don't recommend doing any hardcore or high impact activities anyway, so if you're sticking with jamming out or gaming, I wouldn't be too concerned. Speaking of gaming, they also sent me the low latency gaming package. Bluetooth tends to add a decent amount of delay, which isn't really a problem for listening to music, but if you're gaming, especially if you're playing a rhythm game, you really don't want to have any delay on your sound. Their solution for this is adding a cable that has two magnetic connectors that stick to the back of the shoes and then has a headphone jack at the other end that you plug into whatever device you're using, whether that's a console like the Switch or a PS4, or your PC or a VR headset. I will say getting into VR with the whole cable setup is a bit clunky. The cable goes from the index headphone jack down my shirt, splits at the waist, clips into my pockets, and then goes down to the shoes themselves. It can be kind of annoying to set up, but since everything is contained around your body, it isn't as noticeable once you're in VR. Beat Saber was obviously the first game that I jumped into, and to my surprise, the audio for Beat Saber is fairly balanced, as it should be. So the music isn't like overly bass heavy, and it's not like an overpowering experience, but it definitely adds like a lot of lower end to the game itself and just more enjoyment. I wanted to see how gunshots felt in general, so I just jumped into Boneworks and messed around in a sandbox. Although you can't really feel the kick of the gun on your upper body since it's their shoes, they're on your feet. It is still really nice to have like a little bit more impact and extra feedback along with the controller's haptics on every gunshot. Actually, the hardest hitting thing in Boneworks that I messed around with was the slow-mo button. Because the slow-mo button does this absolute like bass blast sound effect that just vibrates the shoes super hard. It's kind of cool, but at the same time it washes out all the other sounds completely. The game that I found the shoes add the most immersion to is Pistol Whip, and that's mostly because of the bass-heavy soundtrack and the massive gunshots. While the sounds in the game hit the low frequencies that the shoes respond best to, way more so than the songs I played in Beat Saber. It's crazy experiencing the world pulse around you, not just by seeing it, but also feeling it pulse under your feet. Having that constant driving rhythm underneath you and feeling more of the punch behind the gunshots makes the game just so much more fun. So, are the shoes really worth it? I'll start off with what I really like about the shoes. Using the app, they provide like really crisp bass in general that adds more to the music than I didn't think it would do that much for listening to music, but I realized how much of the bass that I was missing out on by pretty much only listening to music through my headphones and never really having the speaker experience where the things are moving around you. If I'm cleaning my room or messing around with like yo-yoing or something, I will 100% throw these on and listen to music that way because it's just better. The customization with different profiles and the direct control over the haptic mount on the app really allows you to tune the feeling however you want it to be. But unfortunately, where these shoes start to lack is actually on the gaming side. Because the low latency gaming cable is driven off of a headphone jack, you are limited by the volume at which you output to that headphone jack. I personally run my headphones pretty quiet when I'm playing games or listening to music, but I still want a decent amount of feedback in my shoes. Trying to fight to balance between the haptic level and what my ears can handle can be a bit of a pain. When running with a lower headphone volume, it tends to feel like the definition of the bass and the haptics is just lost and everything feels a bit more mushy, especially when comparing it or going back to the app where it has that direct line to the music before it even gets to your headphones, and it can really pick up every tone that the bass is putting out. Now with that said, my setup is pretty bad for this as well. I have my headphones plugged into my microphone so I can hear myself, and I'm usually in a Discord call with friends when I'm gaming. This means if I'm playing, say, COD, I feel myself talking, I feel my friends yelling, I feel my music, and I also feel all of the sounds and the explosions of the game, which definitely adds a whole lot of feedback to the experience, but not exactly enhancing just the game anymore. And that's not really the shoe's fault, but there isn't really an easy way to just experience the game sound through the shoes. The second problem I have with the gaming cable is the fact that it's a cable. Although it isn't terrible, I don't really look forward to rigging myself up every time I want to go play VR, and untangling myself and having to unplug it every time I want to take off my headset to go grab a drink of water or change a setting on my computer. Now I will totally break these out and set them up for the extra immersion at, say, like a VR chat music festival, or if I want to jam extra hard on a Beat Saber or pistol whip session. But with the current state of the cables, they aren't really something that I'm going to wear every time I get into VR, simply because it isn't super convenient and I'm an extremely lazy person. Now these problems are mainly due to the limitations of the cable. I would really like to see DropLabs come out with some sort of wireless solution for this, something like a low latency USB dongle similar to something that would be used for like a gaming headset, and a companion application that can selectively choose different games or applications that you want to route the audio from. That way it's actually getting the full audio that it needs to have the definition and the quality that you get from the phone app, as well as being able to specify what you want to be experiencing in your shoes rather than having literally everything that's going into your headphones. This could even allow them to work more specifically with game developers on getting haptic feedback for, say, VR games instead of basing everything just around sound. But that, again, is a lot of work on both the hardware and the software end. So in the end, my verdict is that these perform phenomenally when you pair them with your phone and your headphones, and add way more than I thought they would when you're just listening to music. And for gaming, I think that they still add that same factor and can add a lot of depth and immersion to your experience. But due to the diminished convenience and control in comparison to the app because of the cable, it just leaves me wanting a bit more from the shoes, especially at the higher end price tag. But it just depends on where DropLabs take these in the future and what accessories they're actually going to be coming out with, because these could really be something that I will put on every time I get into VR, or even just sit down at my computer, because they enhance music and gaming so much. If you're interested in learning more about the specs or whatever I didn't cover in this video, or you want to try out a pair for yourself, you can check out the link in the description below. It's 3 a.m. I've been working on this since like 6 p.m. and I still haven't finished filming the B-roll or editing or anything. I need to get this done. I'm leaving for a trip.